Hi, y'all, and welcome or welcome back to the channel. I, just making sure we're live, am so excited. Let me open up the chat too. I'm so excited to talk about this because I was just at the car wash and I was waiting for my car. And I was like, what is going on with Sweeney? I'm so sorry. Sydney Sweeney. That's kind of really hard to say. Like, I feel like she should have a stage name. Anyways, um, what is going on in her astrology? Because I have been seeing so much, like she's trending on threads. Like, I don't know if she's trending in other places. That's just where I've seen like the majority of it. And I was like, what the fuck is going on in her astrology chart? So that's what we're going to talk about in this video because honestly, it made me so excited to see what's going on in her chart and why this is all happening. Like, the astrology always astrologies. Like, the astrology never lies. And I just, every single time something happens like this and I look at the chart, it still blows my mind after like 8 years of doing this. The fact that it's always in the chart. Okay, so let's look at the birth chart. And this isn't about the ad. This is just about what's going on with her. I do think it's, personally been blown out of proportion and kind of making something out of nothing, but that's my opinion. I see both sides. I'm a Libra rising. I do see both sides, but that's not what this video is about. Y'all can talk about it in the comments if you want. Your opinion on the ad itself. Again, I think there's a lot of overreaction going on, but that's just my opinion. Okay. So I have her chart pulled up right now in Placidus which is very uncomfortable for me to read because it's not normally how I read a chart or prefer to read a chart, but it is the chart that when I pulled up. Uh, by the way, the place I get celebrities charts is Astro Theme because they have a database and they have a grading system. So when I pulled up her chart on Astro Theme, which defaults to Placidus, it will tell me the accuracy of the birth information and where it came from. So that's why I prefer Astro Theme to any other website that has celebrities' birth charts, because it will say like how reliable that information is. And for Sydney Sweeney, it is a double A. What is that? Is that what that's called? Yeah, like a double A. It says the reliability comes from the birth certificate or birth record. Um, so and it defaults to pulling charts in Placidus as most websites do. So that is what we're going to start with. Although we can see all these themes, and I will die on this hill, we can see all these same themes in whole sign, and we can also look at that because it does change quite a bit in her chart. As you can see, her chart looks very weird in Placidus because she was born so far north. The houses are really like lopsided. They're not even, which really, I'm a Libra rising and a Virgo Chiron, and I was raised by a Virgo. So I love when things are even and neat and tidy. And that's why I prefer whole sign houses, but we will look at her chart in whole sign and I'll walk you through how I see the same themes in it. But yeah, to start, we're going to do Placidus, which just requires a whole other level of knowing how to read Placidus because it is something I believe a house system you have to learn how to read. It's not like innate or intuitive like whole sign houses is, and that's why I teach whole sign in my level 1, my Become an Astrologer course. Anyways, so the major themes going on for her, and we can actually apply the current transits to her chart too, because that's really what's going on here. I don't know the day that the ad dropped. Let's actually look at that. But it just makes sense. All the backlash. When did the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad come out? 6 days ago. Okay, so when would that have been? The 23rd? Let's go to the 23rd because I'm pretty sure, yeah. Ah! If you know what you're looking at when you look at the chart, you already know what I'm laughing about because oh my God, this was the exact day or like a day after, that Mars was on her sun. And as if y'all have seen my other videos and you've heard me talking about the Mars on the South Node conjunction and Virgo for the past, I've really been talking about it all month because it's a big deal. I think it's the most intense, biggest, arguably, transit of the year because of just the intensity and the, I don't even know another word for it. Anyways, so the day the American Eagle ad came out, Sydney Sweeney had Mars and the South Node conjunct her North Node, her midheaven, and her Sun. Her North Node, or her midheaven is at 19 degrees of Virgo. Her North Node is at 19 degrees of Virgo. The South Node was at 19 degrees of Virgo on this day that the ad came out, and there's been backlash ever since. Mars was 2 degrees away from those parts of her chart and 1 degree away from her Sun in Virgo, which is on her North Node. So it is literally a part of her destiny to be like known to the world. You know, Kim Kardashian has a very similar birth chart placement. If you've seen me do analyses on Kim Kardashian's birth chart before, she, you know, the reason she became so famous, there's a lot going on in her chart other than this, but one of the reasons she's so famous is because she has Jupiter and I believe Venus on her midheaven in her 10th house in Virgo. Sydney Sweeney has a very similar-esque chart with Sun on her North Node on her midheaven in the 10th house, starting at the 10th house if we're looking at this in Placidus, right? So that just amplifies all of those things. Like, she is meant to be known to the public. She is meant to have a huge public reputation and image and career. But because of what's going on in the sky right now, Mars on the South Node, she is receiving a lot of aggressive, critical public backlash for that energy. She is in her nodal opposition, which is kind of like a push and pull energy between your past and karmically releasing the past and moving into your destiny and into, you know, what is meant for you, right? The nodal opposition and Pluto sextile Pluto, I will die on this hill. I think I already said this. It are the most challenging transits before Saturn return. Saturn return is really like a walk in the park compared to these transits because, you know, your nodal opposition is like tension and friction, amplification of like you needing to move in the direction of your destiny and of your purpose. But at the same time, you are called, like the current energy is calling you to the past, right? So it's like this push and pull energy. It's this very intense oscillation. And this usually happens at the age of 27. Not only that, but like I said, Pluto sextile Pluto happens around this age for this generation. This, you know, Pluto has an elliptical orbit. So it does depend on what your Pluto is and where it's going to be at this age for you. But for most of, you know, Pluto and Scorpio, and for most of Pluto and Sagittarius, the Pluto sextile Pluto transit happens at 27. And it is the first major Pluto transit that a person experiences, which is much more lengthy. It lasts about 3 years, where Saturn return, if y'all have seen my video on Saturn return only lasts about 8 months. Maybe it'll last up to a year, but it definitely doesn't last 3 years. Like Pluto sextile Pluto does, right? So that, and I think these transits really often fall under the umbrella of Saturn return because they happen around the same time, but they are not Saturn return, and they need to be acknowledged for what they are, and that they are more challenging than Saturn return itself. And again, this all depends on the birth chart. You know, we can't generalize any of this, but there is much more nuance to this than can be summed up. But in my experience, what I've witnessed, what I have experienced, I had these transits happening for me. Technically, I'm still in my Pluto sextile Pluto, but it is like, it's way on its way out. I had these transits happen for me about 3 to 5 years ago. That was the worst time period of my life. Saturn return was like I said, a cakewalk compared to these transits for me. And I've seen the same in the people in my life. And that's how I learn astrology. That's how I apply it. That's how I teach it, is through practical experience. So, like I said, these transits are really, really hard. This is, I think, what has contributed to like the whole 27 club. What would we call that? Like a phenomenon. Because these hard ass transits happen at 27. It has nothing to do with Saturn's return. Okay. So again, she's in her nodal opposition. It's in her 10th and 4th houses. So she's really torn right now between home, family, sense of self, and her career and public image. And right now she's receiving a lot of very critical, very aggressive public backlash because Mars is on her sun, North Node, and Midheaven in her 10th house. So, not only that, but she has her rising, her ascendant is 28 degrees of Scorpio, where we just had Uranus opposite. Technically, Uranus is still opposite her ascendant, which is the planet of change, of innovation, of chaos. And it's happening for her in her area of the other, of the 7th house. Gemini rules media and communication. So, of course, all these people are, giving her this backlash through the media, especially social media. And like, it's no surprise to me, like, that she's all of a sudden experiencing all this chaos from all of these people. And it's very much public. Like I said, she's trending on everything I've seen right now. So, there's a lot of prominent things happening for her. And the Pluto sextile Pluto, to go into that, she has that, which I mentioned this before we pulled up her chart, but the fact that people are really divided about her right now because of this public backlash and because of this ad is also no surprise to me. Pluto is harmonizing with Uranus. They are trining each other right now, so this really supports a division in the collective. The last time we had Uranus and Gemini, one of the prominent times was the Civil War. The most recent time was World War II. There was clear division between humanity, right? And very polarizing division. So it's no wonder that we're seeing this. And then where it is in her chart, especially, which we'll get into her whole sign chart, because I think there's some things that are more accurately represented in her whole sign chart than her Placidus chart. But to go into her Pluto sextile Pluto, right? That started for her like a year ago. And her Pluto is on her ascendant in Scorpio. And the current Pluto is in Aquarius, which is 60 degrees away from her natal Pluto. So that's what categorizes the Pluto sextile Pluto transit, is when Pluto gets within 60 degrees of your natal Pluto, which it has been for her for about a year, I want to say. And it will, continue. This is one of the longest. Any Pluto transit is one of the longest that you can experience. So this is going to be a kind of theme for her over the next 2 to 3 years. And she will have her Saturn return as well, probably end of next year. A year and a half from now, she'll have her Saturn return in her Placidus 5th house of creativity, passions. I don't like her Placidus chart. It's really throwing me off. So let's look at her whole sign chart. Let's switch that real quick, because we can also see how these themes, even though it changes a lot of her placements, we can see how these themes still apply. So this is her whole sign chart. She still has, her midheaven, north node, sun at 19 degrees, and then sun at 20 degrees. The only thing that it really switched up is which house it's in. So in Placidus, it's in her 10th house. It starts her 10th house because that's how Placidus works. The midheaven starts the 10th house. In whole sign, it's in her 11th house of social media, of community. And Mercury rules this area of her chart. And right now she has a Mercury retrograde in her 10th house. Because I feel like the most recent backlash about this ad has been like over the weekend and the past couple days. So again, she has a Mercury Cazimi in her 10th house happening. Mercury is deeply connected to her 11th house and her north node, her midheaven, and her sun. She also has her natal Mercury in Virgo, and Uranus is challenging it right now. So there's challenge, there's friction between her deep psyche and her sexuality. I mean, that's how I see the ad, is like, oh, she has great genes, like she's hot, like, duh. That's how I see it. Anyways, so the 8th house, I feel like, represents sexuality and how other people see you. in your sexuality. She has Uranus there, the planet of chaos, challenging her natal Mercury while Mercury is retrograde and Mercury rules, like I said, her midheaven, her north node, and her sun. Also, technically, right now, the Mercury retrograde and her sun are in mutual reception with one another. So they're kind of like feeding each other. Again, this is just amplifying all of this energy for her. And she still has Mars on her sun. So, of course, she is still receiving this very public, very aggressive, very critical backlash on social media, the 11th house. I feel like this is really creating a lot, and obviously we can only see like the external part of her chart from the outside world unless she speaks up about these things in an interview or something. But I think because of all of this, she is having a big dark night of the soul. I think it's really bringing up a lot of personal self-worth identity stuff for her. Um, that's just my intuitive take, and then also seeing just how this is how this stuff is also affecting her, because Mars is her chart ruler and Pluto is also her chart ruler. So these are huge transits for her, and there's a lot of this, she has Pluto in her fourth house, so I think there's a lot of this we're not seeing on how it's affecting her personally. And I think cyberbullying is not easy to go through, especially when you are such a public person and celebrity, and like it's not just a couple people cyberbullying you, it's like millions of people. So I think this is really affecting her. I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know if she's going to talk about that, but I do think it's creating this big identity thing. And I expect this won't die down until maybe the end of the week, or maybe not even next week, because we do have the Mercury Cazimi that hasn't even peaked yet. And it is starting to square her Chiron, which I don't think it's going to. I think Mercury will. Let's look ahead. Yeah, Mercury starts to square her Chiron before it goes direct. But she is going to have Venus harmonizing with her Venus. So this could really create in her this perspective shift. And then she's gonna have Mars in her 12th house soon, also, which I think is just she might like literally disappear from the public space for a little bit to reflect on everything. Because I don't think, unless she has an astrologer and she planned this because of the transits, which could be likely. Someone brought this up when I tweeted about this, or I can't remember which if it was X or Threads, but someone brought this up, like she might have an astrologer and like plan this to have all of this backlash coming, because there's no such thing as bad press, right? If you're polarizing, people talk about you, and that puts your name out there. That's how Kim Kardashian got famous, right? That's maybe the PR move, I don't know. But I do think also, even if it was planned, it didn't have the effect maybe she thought it would. And that might cause, some retreat to happen. Also, her chart ruler is going to be in her 12th house, which I just had. My chart ruler isn't Mars, but I just had Mars in my. I have Mars in my 12th house, and it's not fun, y'all. So, anyways, that's something I see coming from this as well. It's also, yeah, I think has she made a public statement yet? Because she could very soon, as Mars is harmonizing with her natal moon, in her third house. So I don't know if she's come out in an interview or anything yet, but if she hasn't, that is going to be happening really soon also. So looking deeper into stuff. Okay, that's what I have. You have any questions, let me know. Bonjour! I was just at my favorite French bakery. And it was great. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Sydney Sweeney's astrology. It's just it's so divine. it blows my mind, honestly, that whenever something like this happens, like I've done so many analysis on celebrities like this when big things happen in their life, like the Johnny Depp trial. If y'all remember that, like a few years ago, there was something that happened with like Kim Kardashian. Oh, her like movement into prison reform. It's like it's always in the birth chart. Like, and this is what I teach you in my Become an Astrologer course is how to like look at your chart for these crucial timing moments so that you can act when the energy is there. Because a lot of this stuff is once in a lifetime. A lot of this stuff is not going to happen often. Like the nodal opposition only happens once every 18 years. So it's a pretty big deal. And that's why 27 is so hard, such a hard age, because you have the nodal opposition happening. You have Pluto sextile Pluto happening for our generation, for most people in our generation, millennials and Gen X or Gen Z. Um, and you also have, which I didn't mention because this gets a lot deeper into the weeds of astrology, but you also at 27, I think at the age that she's at right now, actually, let's pull up her chart again and I can show y'all. Um, you have your progressed lunar cycle come to a close, which is pretty rough too. I have a class on this in my inner circle membership. Let's see. Yeah, let's use her natal location, secondary progressions. So yeah, she already had her progressed lunar cycle come to a close, um, probably a couple months ago, which is just kind of like a completion of your emotional evolution. And so her progressed moon right now is in the third house, and she has Pluto right on it right now. So of course, there's a lot of deep transformative things happening with her emotional world, with how she communicates herself, with what she shares. Um, like this, I mean, it's sextiling her progressed Venus, which is on her Pluto. I swear y'all, the astrology is like it's always on point. It's always there. And then her progressed descendant is a Sagittarius, so which also puts her north node in the 10th house in her progressed chart. Interesting, y'all. Interesting. Merci pour ce partage. Darien, merci à vous. What is partage? I'm gonna look it up. Quoi? C'est quoi ça? C'est quoi ça? Oh, sharing. Okay, cool. Um, yeah, that's all I have for y'all. Let me know if you have any similar placements to Sydney in the comments. Let me know also your opinion of the ad because I know there's quite a lot of opinions about that going around. And if you've already had these crucial transits or not. Like I was saying, the Pluto sextile Pluto transit was so rough for me, and it's still kind of I'm on my way out of it. Was so rough for me. You know, I was in and out of homes, I was in and out of cars, like living in cars. I was building this business, I was starting my podcast, I was starting to post on TikTok. That's when I made my ebook. Like that's when all of this really started to flourish, even though my home life was like non-existent and like I didn't have hardly any foundation of like where I was going to sleep most of the time. But I was like putting my energy and my passion into talking about astrology and human design, and here we are 5 years later. Um, it built this whole business. So that is just it's just getting started, honestly. Um, so yeah, there is some good stuff that can come from it if you work with the energy and I mean, this is astrology 101. If you really work with the energy and you really take in and learn the lessons that the transits are trying to teach you and step up to the plate with them, like your life will change for the better. But it's not always a fun ride. And that's what I think too. If you really make the most of the transits that happen before Saturn return, your Saturn return can be a lot smoother. Obviously, again, nuance depends on the chart, but that's my 2 cents. If we look at her human design chart, it would show how she deals with it. Oh yeah, that's true. We can look at that. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Oops. Hold on. Okay. Human design. Her birthday. She shares a birthday with my ex. So it's really easy for me to remember. Oh wait, shit. I just changed the name. Dang it. My chart calculator is a work in progress. Let me see. Is that the right birth time? Yeah. 42 p.m. Okay, here we go. Well, she has a lot of Virgo late degrees and also the early degree Mercury in Virgo, so it makes sense. She has the 59.6 channel. She's a generator, emotional generator, 4-6. Right angle cross of rulership, so but none of it is activated in her chart except for gate 22, which is interesting. But these transits might be activating stuff for her. We'd have to look at her chart with the transits applied, which let's do that actually. Let's see, LA. Let's do today just for shits and giggles. Okay, so these transits are activating most of her incarnation cross, which makes a lot of sense with the North Node activation as well. And it being exactly opposite her North and South Node placements right now. It makes a sense. But yeah, she's really open, so I mean, it's good for her. She has the defined root and solar plexus because I feel like that creates really solid energy in someone just off the bat. But also, again, she's probably really going through it because I don't think she thought it was going to have this much backlash. And with the 1949 channel, she really cares about humanity. And with the 640, Mercury is retrograde, the 59.6 channel too. Is it the same with the second Saturn return? What do you mean? Like having nodal opposition? Well, you'll never have Pluto sextile Pluto again. That's, like I said, a once in a lifetime transit. Nodal opposition happens every 18 years. So what's 18 plus 27? I don't know. Uh, 18 plus 27. No, you have your, let's see, plus 9. You'll have a nodal return right before the second Saturn return, but they're 4 years apart. But I do think I want to say the Pluto square Pluto happens. I know, I think that happens at like 40 though. There's really nothing as of yet that I know of that happens at the same time or before your second Saturn return, like what happens before your first Saturn return. That's why the 20s are so hard, especially as you get closer to 30. It's because all of those transits are happening for most of us, are happening at the same time, like right before Saturn return does. And then you also have Uranus opposite Pluto at the around the same time, right before Saturn return, or a little bit after Saturn return. Again, depends on the chart. I just had my Uranus opposite Pluto um like right after my Saturn return, and that transit is rough too. But my Saturn return in of itself was honestly a breeze. It was like arguably the best time of my life. It's arguably better than my life now. Was how my Saturn return was for me. Um, okay, but let's go back to her normal chart because I want to see her other stuff, her other human design stuff. Make sure that's right still. Okay. Oh wow, her determination is hot. And she has hope motivation. So this is probably driving her insane that she feels like she can't fix any of it. Yeah. Interesting. Because with hope motivation, the transference is guilt, and I have guilt motivation, and we have to fix everything. If there's something wrong, like we have to fix it immediately. So, again, we don't know how this shows up for her in her personal life, but anyone I've met with hope motivation that's ever in transference, like their life is just chaos. Like internal chaos of like, I want to fix everything, but nothing's going right kind of energy. Um, so yeah, that's what's going on with Sydney Sweeney. Let me know if y'all share any placements with her or yeah, resonate. I feel like the just what I know about what's going on for Scorpio risings in general, like it makes a lot of sense. I feel like every weekly horoscope for Scorpio risings, it's like lots of transformation, lots of change, lots of stuff that's just not fully clear yet, especially with the Mercury retrograde in the 10th house for Scorpio risings. Um, yeah, not y'all like fixed signs are not having an easy time right now, I feel like, especially fixed rising signs. But really, not many people are having an easy time right now. These are rough transits. But especially if they're aspecting things in your chart. So, anyways, that is what I have for y'all today. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it, what your opinion is, what your chart stuff is. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Love you. Bye.